What is up? Welcome to another edition of the NFL Fantasy Football Podcast. It's me, your man, MG Marcus Grant, alongside the Fantasy Hall of Famer Michael Fabiano and the Fantasy Viper Graham Barfield. And we actually just had a really fun World Series discussion here. Because, man, it's been fun. The World Series has actually been really fun this year.
This is the first time ever that a home team has not won a game, right? And through 6 games, and now...
And that actually applies not just to baseball, but to all of the 4 major sports.
That's
in North
unreal.
America.
The Fox broadcast had it last night. It was a really cool... I didn't know that. I mean, so the NBA and NHL, this has never happened before.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
That's amazing.
It's been really good, man. It's been really, really good.
Isn't that strange, though? Like, sports has been going on for a long, long time,
Yep.
and this has never happened.
Guys, Juan Soto.
Juan Soto's a beast, man.
He's so good.
So,
oh, my God, he's so good.
I'm rooting for the Nationals, man. As a Yankees fan who's bitter.
Yeah, you Yankee fans I know have some pent-up frustration with the Astros, so I get that. I just want it to be entertaining. The first 6 games have been entertaining. I want Game 7.
Hey, man, I'm just glad the umps did not absolutely ruin. Well, the ball didn't end up lying, but they almost ended up ruining what was a great game.
The best part of last night was literally my entire timeline was just ball don't lie. Like that's all it was after Anthony Rendon hits the home run in the 7th inning. So I know that a lot of y'all didn't come for baseball. Don't care. We like it. We're talking about it. But we do have plenty of other stuff to talk about here as we get going with this podcast on this Wednesday. We'll go with I'm calling it second acts. I know it's not technically the second half of the fantasy regular season. We're already into it by a couple of weeks, but sort of the second half of the NFL regular season. And so a handful of guys, whether they can keep it going that were surprises in the first half and whether they can keep being productive in the second half. And some guys that maybe left you wanting a little bit more in the first half and whether or not they can get things going in the second half. We'll do a little round of drop or not, although that list not quite as long this week because, man, it's getting hard to find places to clear room on your roster. Also, we'll answer some of your tweets as well and get to all of that.
I'm going to send out a little tweet right now so people can throw some questions our way.
All right. Well, before we do all of that, we'll go behind the glass as always and talk to our faithful producer, Senior Edward L. Murphy, Esquire. Murph, what's up?
Yeah, just to keep continuing. I know, like, we're talking about the World Series off air, and it was a really busy news day yesterday between midseason NFL with the trading deadline. You have that going on, so that's always exciting. I know we're all Game of Thrones fans. A lot of news with that. The World Series. It's just it is a Halloween's to tomorrow, right? So there's a lot going on.
One of the best times of the year.
Yeah.
For sure.
I was refreshing my Twitter literally every 5 seconds hoping the Cowboys got Jamal Adams.
And I was refreshing hoping that he would not be traded to the Giants rival.
Fan.
Yeah, so why do I want to see Jamal Adams play for the Cowboys twice a year, if not more?
Because you and I are pals.
We are pals, but
we're friends.
We
I thought you would want to make me happy.
We're friends. We go hand in hand with the Yankees. Those Cowboys.
I know. Monday night, too.
Yeah, that should
Monday
be
night.
That'll be interesting. But,
that's a good.
Well,
hey,
listen, dude. We are the team that lost to the Jets, which is going to annoy the hell out of me for the rest of my life, okay, that we lost to that garbage team. But so anything's possible, I guess. Maybe we're cursed in that stadium this year.
That was wild, man. I still look back on that and how exactly did that happen?
Well, Amari Cooper got hurt in the middle of
It doesn't matter. We should be able to beat them without Amari
on the road,
Cooper,
which is exactly what Jerry Jones said, which basically means that you guys just looked past the Jets is what it sounds like.
Yeah, and you know what? You watch. So I picked up the Jets in a bunch of leagues, their defense this week. They're going to lose that game. You watch. They're going to freaking lose to the Dolphins.
Oh, I think the Dolphins are going to
You watch.
Wait.
You watch.
So you're telling me Jason Garrett overlooked a game? What? He
Shocking.
was ill-prepared for a game?
Shocking. Shocking. I do think the Dolphins are going to beat the Jets.
So do I.
I think it's going to be hilarious.
Yeah. I really do. And then the Bengals are going to be, the only team that's winless. And then you go into what is it, Week 16, where the Dolphins are playing the Bengals?
Dolphins play the Bengals
and that will be for the number 1 overall pick in the draft.
The Bengals will get the win there, and then they'll put the Dolphins back at the number 1 spot. Yeah. Look, Miami's been close the last couple of weeks. They've had some good first halves. They just haven't been able to hold on in the second half.
Yeah, their defense, literally is just air. I mean, pretty much anybody can run through their defense right now.
Well, let's hope that, because Le'Veon Bell is someone I acquired in a trade. Actually, 2 trades last week, and it didn't start off so well for me.
Oh, man. Mm-hmm. So, all right, so we got plenty to talk about. So let's do some news.
Let's do the news.
Well, we will start in Pittsburgh. James Conner left the game on Monday night in a sling after running through said Miami Dolphins. He's got an AC joint injury. It's got him limited in practice early in the week. Now, Fabs, you said you saw that he's taking it day by day.
Right. So he does a show on the Fan 93.7 in Pittsburgh, and here's a couple of quotes from that. With these injuries, they're going to linger for a while. That's to be expected. It's kind of just something I have to play through. If I can do my range of motion with a little bit of strength back, I'm going to tough it out and be available for the team. He also stated that he's not panicking. So obviously waivers has already run. Hopefully you were able to get Jalen Samuels as insurance because we don't know if Connor's going to be available for this week's game against the Colts. And if he's not and Samuels is active, which we would expect him to be, he ends up being at worst an RB2.
Yeah, no, I mean I think that's the big thing is that he's got a huge possible workload ahead of him if James Conner's not there.
Yeah.
And look, and Graham, we saw earlier in the year. I mean, the Steelers figured out a way to use him and make him productive. So that's a nice pickup if you're able to get him.
They did. And Jalen Samuels, I mean, for what it's worth, like he just tore his meniscus a couple weeks ago, and the Steelers were not expecting him to come back at least for a month. So
right.
he's already bucked.
Yep.
He's already bucked that trend. And James Conner, man. Can we get him through a game healthy this year?
I know.
I mean, he's dealt with quad, knee, ankle injuries, now this shoulder thing.
Yeah, and guys, let me just give you a little bit
warrior.
of advice, okay? And I do this in all of my leagues, and it's something that you should be doing too. So last week on Monday, before the game, I picked up Jalen Samuels in the league that I have James Conner where he was available, and I didn't know Conner was going to get hurt. Be smart with your roster, especially at this time of the year. Say, for example, you have 2 defenses or 2 kickers. I don't know why the hell you would have 2. Or maybe you have a player on your roster that you're really not going to use. Pick up somebody's handcuff. Pick up Alexander Madison, okay? Go out and get a guy who is one injury away from being a fantasy superstar because you never know when that's going to end up really paying dividends for you. And if you were able to pick up Jalen last week, look at what you might have fallen into. So never have that dead spot on your roster. Never have a player, a defense, a kicker, whatever it might be, that you're not going to use on that roster. Go out and pick up handcuffs. Do it. Pick up Tony Pollard. I mean, it might not work out, but if it does, you're looking like a genius.
Yeah, that's definitely. I mean, I think when we're talking about handcuffs, you always want to have the other guy's handcuff. Like for the most part, I hate handcuffing my running backs because it usually does kind of cap your roster upside. But yeah, for sure.
There you go. In Cincinnati, happy birthday, Andy Dalton. You got benched. The Bengals decide they're going to go with Ryan Finley for the short term, at least. I would assume that for the rest of the season.
That was on his birthday, too,
on his
right,
birthday, which, I think we all looked at it as, man, that sucks. You got benched on your birthday. But someone actually made the point that, you know what? Could you imagine, walking into your job on your birthday when things aren't going particularly well and your boss is like, you know what? Just take the rest of the year off. It's fine. That's basically what happened, Andy.
That's actually a good point.
Right?
Isn't that a birthday gift?
Right. That's sort of like hey, you know what? We're still going to pay you, man. Just take the rest of the year off.
You know what? Not getting paychecks.
Those paychecks keep coming in.
They can say, man, that direct deposit still hits every couple of weeks, right?
Andy Dalton got a nice little paycheck.
So, maybe we're looking at this all wrong with Andy Dalton. But what it does mean is that he will not be playing. It's going to be Ryan Finley, the 4th-round rookie, who will be the starter for the Cincinnati Bengals. That's the bad news. The good news is A.J. Green could be back really soon. I mean, Graham, I'm still trying to kind of make heads or tails of what this means. I mean, I tend to think it's on the less good side, though.
Yeah, I mean, this was always kind of in the range of outcomes, right? Is like the Bengals struggle really mightily, and they have to maybe just see what they have with Ryan Finley. I mean, this team is going to be drafting a quarterback very early next year. I think that much is clear. And I think it's a really smart move on their part to at least see what they have in Ryan Finley because Andy Dalton is 32 now. We know what he is at this point in his career. And if A.J. Green does come back, it'd be nice to have an all-pro receiver on the field with Ryan Finley to see what he can do. I mean, in the preseason, I thought Finley could play a little bit. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what they do. It'll be interesting to see what their head coach Zach Taylor does in terms of their scheme. But this offensive line, man, has been their bugaboo all year, and with a rookie quarterback back there, it's not exactly a situation we want to be exposed to in fantasy.
Yeah, I would say this though, and in the past, when a rookie or an inexperienced quarterback has come in, we've always kind of been like, oh man, this is bad. But we've seen some young, inexperienced quarterbacks come into the league especially this year, like Gardner Minshew comes right to mind, and they've come in and done well. And, it's not that, we don't know a whole heck of a lot about this quarterback. He was a 4th-round pick out of North Carolina State. A lot of potential. I know Daniel Jeremiah had tweeted out that he reminds him of Jared Goff. I don't know if that's good or bad.
Well, is Sean McVay going to go to Cincinnati?
Which Zach Taylor
got Zach Taylor.
Got the connection. Who knows? But anyways, it's not like I'm rushing to pick him up off the waiver wire. But I'm not gonna say that this is a statistical death sentence for everyone in that offense just yet. But we'll see.
Yeah. I tend to be skeptical on this one just because Ryan Finley, it's not so much the 4th-round pick. It's that, look, with Gardner Minshew, and maybe it's because I watch a lot of Pac-12 football, like I saw Gardner Minshew sort of develop and become a guy who was slinging the rock in that air raid offense that Mike Leach is running up there in Pullman. I don't know. I don't know that I look around and think, man, NC State, they got a great passing game. Let's jump on that now.
So, we'll see.
We will see. Speaking of passing games, Joe Flacco looks like he's going to be out a while. Could be as much as 5 or 6 weeks as he deals with a neck injury. So Brandon Allen is going to step in, at least in the short term, and be the quarterback for the Broncos. Now, that doesn't mean that Drew Lock can't eventually take over somewhere down the road.
The question is, do you really want that?
Yeah, it sounds like that's not something people are excited about. And I know, Fabs, you were sort of down on Courtland Sutton just because, mostly of the schedule and the prospect of Drew Lock jumping in there. I don't imagine this makes you any more optimistic.
No, I had him in one league. I traded him for Phillip Lindsay, and I love it because – and again, I'm not gonna sit here and poo-poo Brandon Allen. Guys have been coming in and making impacts, but this offense is going to run the ball a lot. Without Emmanuel Sanders, defenses are going to be keen on stopping Courtland Sutton. And, it's sort of like the specter of the unknown with this kid. We don't know what he's going to come in and do. Maybe he is going to come in and he's just going to funnel vision targets towards Courtland Sutton. That's very possible. But I can tell you something right now. As anyone who is out there and has Courtland Sutton, as bad as Joe Flacco is, you'd much rather have him throwing footballs to the wide receivers, specifically Courtland Sutton, than Brandon Allen or Drew Lock for sure.
Does this mean anything good, bad, otherwise for the running backs there, Graham?
Yeah, they were already running their offense through their running backs pretty much with Freeman and Lindsey splitting carries, and then they dump off the ball between the two. I won't pretend to know anything about Brandon Allen. I'm excited to see what he can do for this offense, though, right?
Yep.
Because Flacco is kind of the same thing as Andy Dalton. We've known what Andy Dalton and Joe Flacco have been for years now.
For a while.
It's always fun to watch new quarterbacks come in and see what they can do.
Well, everybody offers a different skill set, and it's just like with Flacco, he's just dust back there. He can't move in the pocket. He can't throw the ball downfield consistently anymore. It's just he doesn't offer you anything. So I'm actually excited maybe to see if Brandon Allen gives them some pop.
Well, okay. Well, we will certainly find out. But at the same time, I don't know. Pick up the Browns defense anyway.
Yes.
And you know what? You can actually stream the Broncos too because Baker Mayfield's Mr. Turnover Machine.
Yes, you can. I have gone through and picked them up in a couple of leagues for this week. News out of Washington, Darius Geis is on track to reportedly suit up in Week 11. Just had another injury at the start of the season and was on injured reserve, but is working his way back. I just want to see Darius play. I want to see him get on the field and have an opportunity to play. We have been robbed of that. He has been robbed of that opportunity. But Fabs, would you take a chance on him? Would you kind of stash him somewhere in expectation?
I would, because same sort of situation. Like if you've got a spot on your roster that you're not using this dude, you have a second kicker, whatever the case may be. Why not? Why not go out and do? I've picked him up in a few leagues, and I've been in contact with him. He's feeling good. And why wouldn't the Redskins, who are, miles away from ever being a postseason team, why wouldn't they see what they have in him? Maybe Adrian Peterson has looked okay at times. Maybe against the Vikings, that was his kind of last gasp at putting up a nice stat line. Why wouldn't the Redskins utilize Darius if he's healthy and available? And I certainly, what are you going to get off the waiver wire right now at running back?
True.
Ty Johnson blew up in all of our faces last week. People were picking up Trey Carson this week. So, unless you got Jalen Samuels or if you got a Mark Walton, for example, there's not much out there. Pick them up and see what happens, man.
Yeah, I think what we've seen with these Redskins team now that Bill Callahan is the head coach is they want to run the ball. And if Geis is healthy, and that's always the big if coming off the meniscus tear, if Geis is healthy and out there, I fully expect him to get at least like 15 to 20 carries every game. But it just comes down to, it's the Redskins.
Yeah, no, I get it.
It's the Redskins, man.
It's the same thing that we say with Mark Walton. It's the Dolphins.
Right.
But guess what? They're playing the Jets this week, and a lot of people are going to be flexing Mark Walton. Now, look at the schedule here for Darius. Now, they have a bye in Week 10, and then potentially he comes back against the Jets, believe it or not. Then Detroit, Carolina, Green Bay, that's a good matchup. Philadelphia, not so much. Giants in Week 16. So the schedule's not that bad, Graham, right?
Yeah, he's just got to stay healthy, man.
That's the one thing. Just stay healthy,
the
man.
Redskins have probably been dying to keep him healthy. He's just not gotten lucky yet.
Yeah.
Hopefully he can get lucky.
Hopefully he can stay on the field, because that would be it'd just be fun to actually get to see him have a chance to play, because we haven't been able to do that yet. Last bit of news here: Chase Edmunds likely to miss a few weeks. He left last week's game with a hamstring injury. We all know that they traded, they being the Cardinals, traded for Kenyon Drake. And he will be on the field for Thursday night's game against the San Francisco 49ers. But
good luck with that.
Graham, like with Drake there, David Johnson at some point is coming back. This is getting really, really crowded, and it's hard, I think, to make a case to keep Edmunds sitting on your roster right now.
Yeah, I agree. I've been looking at some of my teams and seeing where I can drop Edmunds. I had him on a few teams, and had him with DJ and a few teams too. So I'm expecting Kingsbury to give Drake maybe 10 to 15 touches here on Thursday night, but other than that, man, it is this Cardinals backfield has really quickly just absolutely fallen apart.
And it's funny too, because how quickly values can change. Edmunds was the hottest running back in the league for about 5 seconds, and now people are going to drop him because of the injury. Now, again, keep this in mind. I've said this on the television show. The Niners have 2 games against the Cardinals in the next 3 weeks. So you can't start Kenyon Drake expecting to have him produce anything significant. He's basically a volume-only starter in that game. And then he's got Tampa Bay. And Tampa Bay's defense has got one of the better run. They're a very good run defense.
Yeah,
one of the 3 best.
Then the Cardinals have a bye. So basically, Drake's got 3 dreadful matchups, a bye. And then at that point, if David Johnson's not back, I'm going to be crying in my beer, because I'm waiting for him, and I would think 4 weeks is going to be enough to come back from whatever it is that he's dealing with.
Yeah, and Edmunds, for what it's worth, is dealing with a hamstring injury, and as we know, with skill position players, those can tend to linger, and with their Cardinals bye coming up, I think it's pretty safe. You can drop Edmunds in 10-team leagues.
Man, you're talking about just a couple of running back free agent pickups that sort of blew up on us, right? Because people picked up Chase Edmunds and probably didn't start him that 1 week.
Maybe we'll talk about this at the end of the year, but based on how this year is going, the waiver wire outside of week 1 has just been pretty much terrible.
Been pretty thin.
Yeah, it's been really bad all year long.
Yeah, so between Chase Edmunds and Ty Johnson, those are a couple of running back pickups that did not go at all the way we would have thought. And it's got to be frustrating if you are
Injuries
thin at
suck.
the position. Injuries absolutely suck. So there you go. That's pretty much everything you need to know.
That was the news.
Well, looking at what is the second half of the NFL regular season, we're into it in the fantasy regular season. Time to look at some guys, I think, that were surprises in the first part of the year and whether or not they have what it takes to kind of keep that production going in the second half of the season. So I went and picked one from each of the 4 main positions here, and so we can kind of talk it out here. So the first one, Gardner Minshew, who came in when Nick Foles was injured early in week 1, has stepped in, has become a sensation, not just on the field, but obviously his keen fashion sense as well, with, headbands and mustaches and jorts. He's been really good so far. Nothing suggests he's going to slow it down. Fabs, do you believe that the magic mustache will keep this thing rolling?
I'm digging him this week. I actually picked him up in a league and dropped Jared Goff. I have Kyler Murray on the bench there, so I'm not playing Kyler this week. But I don't know if he's going to keep the job when Nick Foles is back, but all we can look at is right now. And right now, you've got a matchup that looks pretty darn good against the Houston Texans. They're giving up nearly 300 passing yards per game. They've given up 19 total touchdowns to quarterbacks this season. We've seen them give up some very big performances. So Gardner Minshew, if he's not a top 10 quarterback this week, he's very, very close.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. And I know the debate is going on in Jacksonville, Graham, whether or not he holds on to this job. I mean, if you're the Jaguars, why would you want to keep this thing? Why would you want to disrupt this thing that's been so good right now?
You know, this is a really tough philosophical question, right? Is like Gardner Minshew for the next 4 years is on this insanely cheap rookie quarterback deal. The Jags have obviously tried to mend their quarterback situation by throwing money at Blake Bortles that was ill-advised, and then they obviously gave Nick Foles a bunch of money. But I don't really think you can go back to Foles, right? I mean, you've got this quarterback, right, that has essentially come out of nowhere and really, I mean, given this offensive life and all of these great weapons around him, they've created a great ecosystem in Jacksonville there. Nick Foles will be back after the bye. I'm assuming the Jags have their bye in Week 10, and it'll be really interesting to see, what Doug Marrone and this staff decides to do, because Minshew, this is obviously not something you can put back in the bottle.
They've sunk a lot of money though into Nick Foles. I mean, sometimes money talks. So we'll see.
Yeah, except and it's not a 1-to-1 comparison, but I mean, Russell Wilson and Matt Flynn, right?
Yeah.
The Seahawks went and spent a whole lot of money on Matt Flynn, and Russell Wilson just turned out to be better. I'm not saying that Gardner Minshew is going to have a Russell Wilson career, but I mean, it's at least an example.
That's the example I've thought about too. Is Nick? We obviously know Nick Foles can play, and Matt Flynn was up for debate, and the Seahawks obviously, they got super lucky drafting Russell Wilson. But yeah, I mean, I just with when rookie quarterbacks come out and play as well as Minshew has played, and how he's looked so fearless for 8 weeks now. I just don't know how you can go back to Foles, but. The Jags definitely have a good problem now. At least they have 2 viable starters as opposed to 0.
There's teams that are looking for 1, and the Jaguars have 2, right?
And honestly, too, I mean, you have to look at sort of where the Jaguars are. They're a 4-4 team, and they've got a tough matchup this week. And if this is a team that's not in playoff contention, I would still consider Foles to end up being the favorite to get that job back, because I still feel like the Jaguars made a big investment in him, and they want to see what they have.
Yeah,
they really do.
I mean, maybe you showcase him and you try.
That's also Nick Foles. Like, think about his career, right? So he starts off in Philadelphia. He has that 1 year where he has 27 touchdowns and 2 picks. He was awesome, unbelievably efficient. And then the next year wasn't so good. Then he ended up in St. Louis and didn't do anything there. I think then he was in Kansas City for a second.
Yeah.
And then he goes back to Philadelphia, wins a freaking Super Bowl. Loses the job to Carson Wentz the following year, and then he goes and gets a big money deal with the Jaguars to be their starter, gets hurt in Week 1, and now Gardner Minshew is threatening him. I mean, it has been quite a soap opera tale there for Nick Foles in the NFL.
Yeah, tell me about it. I mean, that 27-2 season though was legendary.
That was ridiculous.
Yeah. That was legendary.
Ridiculous.
That was Chip Kelly play calling God mode.
That was that was amazing.
You remember the days.
Okay, so Graham, Austin Eckler was amazing for the first half of the season. And even with Melvin Gordon coming back, he still has found ways to be productive. Now there's a change in offensive coordinators, so that sort of throws everything up in the air again. But can we still kind of believe in Austin Eckler in the last part of the year?
What's been really unfortunate is the last couple of weeks, his role as a rusher has basically just been dwindled down. Over the past month since Melvin Gordon's been back, he's carried the ball just 16 times. This Chargers team as a whole, guys, they cannot run the ball whatsoever.
At all.
Rich Rebark had a great tweet earlier this week. They are the only team basically in modern football history to have 4 straight games where they're held under 40 yards rushing.
It's amazing.
I just... That blows my mind. And this offensive line is not going to be getting any better anytime soon. They've been dealing with injuries all year long. So really the only thing we're hoping for with Eckler at this point is he stays involved as a receiver, which, we can count on that reasonably every week. But with Melvin Gordon back, he's been playing significantly in the passing game too. As good as Eckler is and as awesome as he was to start this year, I think he's pretty clearly demoted back down to an RB2 role, because he's going to be relying on touchdowns unless they go back to him as in some sort of featured type situation.
I'd play him this week, though, against Green Bay. They're giving up
right
around 6 catches a game, the running back.
His schedule.
I'd still play
Their
him.
next 3 games, man, are super. I mean, they're great matchups. Packers, Raiders, Chiefs. I mean, they're 3 good spots for these running backs.
Mm-hmm. I would think that the thing that might help Eckler's value and his production is the fact that they're really struggling to find a second wide receiver consistently. Like Mike Williams has not been as consistent as I think a lot of people would like. I mean, we know Keenan Allen's going to do his thing. You know, Hunter Henry is going to have his role, but I think they're looking for another pass catcher. And I think Eckler, who they will line up out wide or in the slot on occasion, can sort of like the way we see Aaron Jones doing in Green Bay. Yeah. I think the Chargers can sort of use Austin Eckler that way there for their.
Well, I really hope we get Devontae Adams back. Speaking of the Packers,
speaking of Mike Williams, real quick, after scoring 10 touchdowns last year, he's got 0. After this second half, man, if Mike Williams is a pretty good positive touchdown regression candidate here.
Yeah, you would think so. Terry McLaurin has been fantastic. I mean, we talked about there were a handful of receivers we talked about coming out of the draft. McLaurin didn't get quite as much attention. He has turned out so far to be the best of that rookie wide receiver group. The good news is that he's played fantastic in the first half, Fabs. The bad news is that he may be dealing with Dwayne Haskins, who is reportedly just not ready and needs a whole lot more development. I guess I don't need to read reports. I have seen him play the couple times he's been on the field, and that's
not good.
It sort of shows that he is not quite ready. Does that worry you about McLaurin? Is he a guy that we may need to fade in the second half?
Well, let's see what Case Keenum's status is. He's in concussion protocol. I wouldn't play McLaurin regardless this week against Tre'Davious White and the Buffalo Bills. I'm just not doing it. And I'm definitely not doing it if Haskins is the quarterback. But if you look at the schedule, McLaurin has a really favorable schedule, at least among wide receivers over the next.
Oh, my God. It's amazing.
So if we get Case Keenum under center, and I would think Callahan's going to want to win some games, and he's not going to put Haskins out there. I mean, he looked awful, bro. I mean, he's not ready. So if we knew Keenum was going to be the guy the rest of the season, then trade for Terry McLaurin after he does nothing against Buffalo, because you can sort of buy low on him a little bit, because that schedule is really good. But if at any point in this season Dwayne Haskins is the quarterback for an extended period of time, all bets are off with TM.
Yeah, I don't think the Redskins can at any point this year in good faith go to Haskins. Keenum's obviously in concussion protocol. We'll see what his status is this week. But you mentioned the schedule, man. Like, they come out of their bye in Week 10, and they get the Jets, Lions, Panthers, Packers, and then fantasy playoffs at home versus Eagles, at home versus Giants.
Yep.
That is exactly what you want to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. They just got to get that quarterback situation settled. The other part of it is, here's the thing. Even with Bill Callahan taking over and really wanting to run the football, it's been nice to see that McLaurin hasn't really had a drop-off in his opportunities and his targets. He's kind of the one guy that they can throw to consistently.
He's the only guy they can throw to consistently.
Only guy. That's right.
All right, so last one for can they keep it going? Austin Hooper, who, as we sit here and talk, he is the tight end 1. Never would have guessed that in a million. I mean, I thought maybe there's a chance that he could be a decent sleeper tight end. Never would have pegged him to be the tight end 1.
So what we're telling you here is that
we know nothing.
You've got Hooper's 1 and Waller's 2, right?
Is he 2 or 3? But yeah, he's in the top.
Well, I mean, and if you're talking about points per game too, I mean, Waller, I'm not exactly sure, but he may be number 1. Those two guys didn't get drafted into the late rounds if they got picked at all. I mean, Hooper got picked in most leagues. Waller, maybe not so much. So anybody who drafted Travis Kelce, Zach Ertz, raising my hand right now because he's killing me. Yeah, Waller is 3 by 0.1 points. So
they've both been
so
sick.
For all intents and purposes, he is tied with Travis Kelce at number 2 right now. But I mean, Graham, even when Matt Schaub came in, I mean they've been throwing the ball in the direction of Austin Hooper. I feel like this is one that's probably not going away soon.
No, it's not. And the Falcons, all their trailing and their defense just absolutely sucking has really helped. Basically, the pass volume in this entire offense is, I think Austin Hooper's probably been the biggest beneficiary of all of the Falcons' issues. When you have to throw the ball 45 times per game, guys are going to get fed, and they have a bunch of talented guys, and Hooper has really taken a big step this year. He's been fantastic, and I think this is something we can count on moving forward. Looking at last year, Hooper had he always showed a little bit of potential to maybe be like a PPR stud where you can catch 5 balls every game. But this year, the volume has just been absolutely massive in this offense. And, their schedule to start this year was really, really conducive to some big games. And down the stretch, I mean, they get out of their bye in Week 9 here. Then they get the Saints, Panthers, Bucks, Saints again. Fantasy playoffs, they'll have the 49ers and the Jags. But yeah, I mean, this is the volume has been there. And with Matt Ryan under center, getting Matt Ryan back under center will help it even more.
Which hopefully will happen after the bye. They're hoping that Matt Ryan will be ready to go and starting again for the Falcons. All right. So on the flip side, guys, can they get it going for the second half? And the first one, it's a name that I actually in a couple leagues have picked up off waiver wires where he has been. Cam Newton, who the last time we saw him, I mean, just was injured. The offensive line was still trying to figure itself out. I mean, it just wasn't a good situation. Kyle Allen has come in and started this weird debate on whether or not he is actually better than Cam Newton, which makes me scratch my head. But, I mean, look, Fabs, if you could pick up and stash Cam Newton, that seems like a pretty good deal at this point in the season.
I would, too, because they also have the 6th easiest remaining schedule for quarterbacks.
Right.
So, and I get it. He was bad. He was bad at the end of last year. He was bad at the beginning of this year. Kyle Allen got exposed a bit last week. I mean, the Niners made him look like a guy who hadn't started many games in the NFL, which is precisely what he is.
Right.
He's going to get the start this week. But no, I would agree. Because in most competitive leagues, if Cam Newton's available, I mean, he's going to be the best option out there. Gardner Minshew's probably gone. Even Sam Darnold's a streamer this week. There's not a lot at the quarterback position unless you want to pick up Mitchell Trubisky. Good luck with that. So, no, Cam is certainly a guy. I've done it, too. I've picked him up. I'm stashing him away, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. It's so – I mean, you're talking about a guy who at his best, right? I mean, during his peak, this was a top 3 fantasy quarterback, right? And so he didn't even have to be that down the stretch. If he can just give you some QB1 weeks from here on out, if you can hold on to him and stash him for another week or two, then, because he's not going to play this week, right? I think they've already said Kyle Allen.
Yeah, Kyle Allen's going to be their starter.
He's going to be the starter this week, so you may have to hang on for another week or so, but, man, beyond that, if you can get him back, it's going to be great. Plug your ears, Fabs, because I know you don't want it, because I know Todd Gurley has frustrated you. So I'll ask Graham. With Todd Gurley, I mean, I am holding on to this fantasy that they're just sort of saving him for a stretch run. They're saving him now that we're getting into November and December, especially because the Rams have to make up ground right now, right? I mean, you've got the Niners undefeated. You've got the Seahawks playing very well, kind of right on their heels. If you're the Rams, the chance of winning the division has gotten very small, and now you're playing just to try to get in as a wild card. So I'm holding on to this belief that this is when Sean McVay takes the wraps off Todd Gurley and makes him back into the workhorse that we're used to seeing.
I mean, I think you're going to be holding on to that faith. Like these Rams have done some weird stuff with Gurley's usage. I mean, so going back a month from today, Gurley played like over 90% of the snaps on that short week against the Seahawks, and then he obviously missed week 6 with the quad. These past 2 weeks, he's been down at his 2 lowest snap rates over the last 3 years, and again, maybe that's him just dealing with some of the residual effects of that quad injury, and the bye here is in week 9. But man, I just don't see this turning around. I think they signaled all offseason that this was going to be some sort of committee. Gurley would be the lead of the committee. But the biggest thing that I've been surprised about is Gurley's just basically not involved in this passing game. And that's what's really killed his ceiling this year.
Yeah, that's the biggest shock. I mean, you figure even if he's not getting the same level of carries, that they would still throw him the football. And
it's
that
not been
hasn't
there.
happened. Yeah,
it's not been there, man.
And that's the one that I can't quite explain away.
There have been a few games where like the targets went up and you're like, okay, I feel a little bit better.
It was one game. He had 11 targets against
and then
the
it
Bucs.
just sunk back down again.
Yeah, and that's one that I haven't quite figured out why or how that's happened. Fabs, we got the expected get-right game for Juju Smith-Schuster on Monday against the Dolphins. Does this mean that he and Mason Rudolph are cool now and we can go back to starting him without any concern, or was that just like I
don't know about that.
A matchup
It
thing?
was the Dolphins. I mean, after all, a little bit tougher matchup this week against the Indianapolis Colts and that underrated defense. But where you probably drafted Juju, you probably have to play him every week. But this is not the same Juju Smith-Schuster that we had drafted, right? Because we expected Ben Roethlisberger to be the quarterback. We expected, this team to not have gone to their second-string quarterback, to their third-string quarterback, now back to their second-string quarterback. And let's be honest, guys, Mason Rudolph, he didn't look that great. Even against the Dolphins.
He has not looked
He was throwing some ugly passes, dude. I mean, and a few of the passes that he completed, he was just chucking it up there and hoping. And his receivers, Deontay Johnson in particular, and Juju too, made some sick catches to make plays for Mason Rudolph. So just keep that in mind. So Juju's going to have stinkers. He's not going to be the most reliable wide receiver. He's going to have his stinkers. In fact, if you can package him in a deal right now after his big game, I would consider that. Looking at the strength of schedule, tied for 16th. I guess that's just dead nuts in the middle in terms of strength of schedule. So I wouldn't be adverse to trading him if I got a good offer.
Yeah, Mason Rudolph has been a little bit of a disappointment because he chucked the ball deep downfield in college, and he's looked, to my eyes and to I think a lot of people's eyes, he's looked scared at times and kind of just not trusting what he's seeing. And that's unfortunate because he's got a great receiver in Juju, and I think Deontay Johnson's going to be really good.
Side note,
I think he's going to be really good.
Side note, James Washington has been fairly absent. This year.
It's over, man. It's over. I was way wrong about James.
I think a lot of us were. I like James Washington too, especially when Roethlisberger went down, and you're thinking, okay, well,
I think that's what
it's a downgrade, but you're thinking they have a rapport.
I think that's what ultimately killed him because Big Ben will obviously throw deep, and Rudolph is not only not throwing deep, when he does, it's just not looked great.
No, he's been late. He's been behind guys. It has been a struggle for him throwing deep. But James Washington just really hasn't been around. He's like dropped some passes on Monday. Just did not look good. Has not looked good all year long. Last one.
I don't want to talk about him. You take him, Graham.
Zach Ertz, man.
I don't want to talk about him.
So the last 2 weeks, Zach Ertz has 9 targets, 4 catches, 58 yards.
Did you say
touchdowns.
dying targets?
I mean,
I thought you said dying targets.
I mean,
I'm like,
possible.
Yeah,
possible.
That's true.
But yeah, his 9. So I think he's gone 4 weeks, I believe it is, with fewer than 8 fantasy points. While in the same stretch, Dallas Goedert has had 9 or more in 4 straight games. We were talking about Zach Ertz maybe being a top 3 tight end. He's probably not the best tight end on his own team, at least fantasy-wise right now.
Man, you know what? He's not, and that's the thing is like Goddard offers so much more flexibility for this Eagles team, right? Because Zach Ertz can't block. I mean, he basically is split out as a receiver on over half of his routes, and they can play Goddard on the line of scrimmage. Now, granted, not having Deshaun Jackson over basically this entire season has really helped Goddard's usage. So the Eagles have basically shifted to more of a 2 tight end approach. We'll see if Deshaun Jackson plays this week. But Goddard, you're right, man. Over the last month, I tweeted this out earlier this week, is like Zach Ertz has 13 receptions, 169 yards and a score on 26 targets. Goddard's basically got the same line, 13 for 150 and 2 on 20 targets. And look, I don't, even if Djax comes back, I don't see Zach Ertz even coming close to the volume that he had last year. And that was the thing, is like Zach Ertz had this phenomenal fantasy season because he broke the tight end record in targets, basically.
Right.
That was not going to happen this year, even with Deshaun Jackson injury. So, yeah, man, it's been a really tough slog for anyone who drafted Ertz in that third.
I wonder if we're going to go back to, and Marcus, you remember this, you might remember this too, but for a couple of years, Zach Ertz was worthless until Thanksgiving.
So about Thanksgiving.
And then he went nuts.
Right.
So hopefully that happens again.
I remember those trends too, yeah.
Yeah, when
remember that?
It was usually like mid to late November when he would start to like pick things up, and then everybody would draft him, and then you would struggle with him for September and October, and then you drop him, and then somebody else would reap the rewards. So yeah, that's what it is with Zach Ertz there. Drop or not, guys that may be hanging around on your roster that probably don't need to be on your roster anymore. We talked about Chase Edmunds. At this point, it's hard to make a case to hold on to him with the Cardinals going and getting Kenyon Drake with David Johnson, hopefully coming back sometime soon, and Edmunds expected to miss a few weeks. I think he's one you can go and put back in the waiver wire. Speaking of the Steelers, Vance McDonald was a guy that a lot of us sort of had some sleeper aspirations for. It hasn't happened this season. I mean, we talked about James Washington being a disappointment. James Washington has more receiving yards than Vance McDonald.
What?
This year, yes.
Wow.
161 to 146 for VMAC. He has 2 touchdowns, which is, kind of helped him a little bit. But yeah, 17
that is wild.
17 catches for $146 for Vance McDonald. I mean, he's still owned in 50 some odd % of NFL.com leagues, but it's over, right?
Yeah, it's way over, man. If you've been relying on Vance or trying to get Vance going, when you only catch 3 balls for 19 yards against the Dolphins, it's probably not good.
Well, and Nick Van Nett was getting
Yep.
targets too. So now you've got another tight end sort of in the mix there, taking some of those opportunities. So
yeah. Outside of that one game where he went 7, 38, and 2 with Rudolph, I think that was the game Rudolph came into. Outside of that, he's basically not been involved in this offense.
No, and he was a guy that we thought, okay, well maybe this is the year that Vance McDonald takes a big step forward, and that hasn't happened. Payton Barber is still on rosters in about 50 some odd % of NFL.com leagues as well. And look, the Buccaneers offense, not great, especially their run game, not great. And you look at Barber's numbers so far this season. He had a nice game in week 2. He went for 82 and a touchdown. Since then, his rushing totals, 48, 19, 32, 28, 20. Gross, right? So now as I look at this, his ownership percentage has dipped to 49.8, which means I'm guessing some folks overnight probably let him go.
Gave him the boot.
I would think that at this point, a whole lot more people can probably just release him back to the wild now.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at the last 2 weeks with this team, I mean, Payton Barber, 29 of 83 snaps. Ronald Jones, 22 of 83 snaps. The touches are 12 to 11. Like, I mean, this is just this is a team that has basically gone complete backfield committee, and of course this was in their last game. You're also seeing a team that is leaning heavily on the pass, and we saw that with Mike Evans putting up big numbers. We've seen it with Chris Godwin putting up ridiculous numbers. So maybe this was all part of Bruce Arians' scheme, and the reason why they didn't sign a running back or draft a running back. They didn't put any capital into that position because, for all intents and purposes, it's become useless in this offense.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think that maybe this is the year, this is the offseason that they go and they try to figure something out at the running back position. I mean,
possibly.
Ronald Jones has been better, but he's not great.
Yeah. When you have a backfield committee that's not only a 3-man committee, and then you mix in the team doesn't really try to get any of these guys going, there's no semblance of consistency with their game plan every single week. It's just a brutal situation. One more guy I think we can safely drop in leagues is Duke Johnson, man. He has been – I've seen him dropped in a few leagues over the last couple of weeks, and unless Carlos Hyde gets hurt, I just don't see a path where he's – going to have a consistent role, just any upside to get into your fantasy lineups.
Yeah, it's funny because he sort of fills the same role on my fantasy roster that he does in every NFL roster he's been on, right? Where he's he's just that in between guy, right? He's a good running back, but there are better running backs. He's a good receiver, there are better receivers, and so you're sort of stuck. I can't really. He's not giving you enough to actually put in your lineup every single week. I mean, yeah, I'm looking at his production. I mean, the ceiling is not high enough and the floor is not low enough, so you're sort of stuck in purgatory,
right?
With Duke Johnson.
Speaking of stuck in purgatory, 2 more. Are you guys dropping Titans receivers? I mean,
that's
a really tough call too.
Corey Davis in a few leagues this week
because I
have bye week issues. And his schedule's not great in the next couple of weeks, so I did cut him.
Yeah.
I think that's. I didn't want to have to be in that position, so I kind of stayed away from Titans receivers for the most part. I think I still have A.J. Brown in a couple of leagues.
It's just these dudes are so talented. I've loved Corey Davis and A.J. Brown's talent this whole year, and I think their quarterback situation has obviously held them back.
Yep.
But just looking at their schedule too, I mean, if there's a chance for these dudes to get real hot down the stretch with the Jags and Raiders and Texans in 3 of their 4 games after their bye.
Yep.
It's just, man, I just want to see some consistency.
That's all.
I just want to see some consistency.
That's all. That's all we've been asking for years out of the Titans receivers. Doesn't matter who they are. They just haven't given it to us. Before we go, I know Fab's put out the call for some Twitter questions. Do we have any?
We have a ton of questions. So here, I'm going to start it off. You guys are gonna do the analyst thing here. First one is from Matthias. What is A.J. Green's value when he returns now that Finley has the reins in Cincinnati?
Right now, I mean, I think he's. Look, I'm starting him because I've held on to him this long, right? So as soon as he's on the field, I'm starting him. But I think at best he's a wide receiver 2 right now.
Yeah, volume-based receiver 2 until we see something from Finley.
All right, this one's from Jason. Better desperation play. Poor kid. Ty Johnson or Payton Barber?
Well. If you had just listened to the previous 5 minutes of this very podcast,
man.
Yep.
I would probably go Ty Johnson and hope he catches a few balls, and that's
that's probably what I would do too. But I'm sorry, man.
Yeah. Next one is from Sawyer. He needs a wide receiver and a flex out of Cortland Sutton, Sammy Watkins, DJ Moore, and Adam Thielen.
Sutton, Watkins, Moore, and Thielen.
Yep. 2.
So he needs 2.
I think Thielen is
in because he's working his way back,
right,
and I think they're hoping he can play. So
it's basically Sutton versus Watkins versus Moore.
Yep.
I think I'd still go Sutton. Panthers are in a tough spot this week.
Panthers are in a tough spot, and I just think of those guys. Well, I'd say Sammy Watkins has the highest ceiling, but Sutton is the highest ceiling with the safest floor.
Yeah, Sammy Watkins has the highest ceiling, but literally,
no floor.
No floor.
This one's from Angel. Mark Ingram, brutal matchup, or Kenyon Drake, brutal matchup.
I'd go with Ingram, and even if Mark Ingram averages like 2.5 yards per carry, he can still score twice.
Yeah,
which I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I mean, plus just the threat of Lamar Jackson running will kind of open some things up for Ingram, I think.
Yep. This is a good one here. Matthew Murray needs 2.5 point PPR. Juju, Gallup, Sutton, or Tyrell Williams.
Juju, Gallup, Sutton, or Tyrell Williams.
Mm-hmm.
Gallup for sure.
Yeah.
Gallup for sure, yes.
Gallup for sure this week.
I know who I'm thinking.
I might go Tyrell this week.
That's what I'm thinking.
They have the Lions this week, so I might go Tyrell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Man, that's where we've gotten, huh?
This is where we are.
I can't honestly. I really can't fight that. I mean, it's kind of they have a very similar expectation. The Lions really, man, like losing Quandre Diggs, they basically just have Darius Slay back there.
That's it.
Yep. We'll do a couple more here. Father Pappas, I don't know if he's a priest, wants to know, or if he's...
Or he just has kids.
Yeah, maybe.
He's just a guy with kids.
Lamar Jackson, is he good enough to start against the Patriots, or should he roll with Gardner Minshew?
Nah, go with Lamar, man.
Go with Lamar.
Yeah, Lamar could throw 2 picks in that game and not be great as a passer and still go nuts for fantasy.
Okay. We'll do 2 more. Mile High Highlights. So I'm assuming this is a Broncos fan. Start 2, Emmanuel Sanders, Terry McLaurin, oh boy, DJ Moore, or Christian Kirk. That's tough, man.
I'm starting Sanders for sure, and I think maybe
DJ
Kirk.
Moore. DJ Moore?
I'd go Kirk over DJ Moore this week.
Yeah. I'd probably go with Kirk just on volume alone.
Marcus, I think you might have been right. Your initial read on Manny, like going back and watching some of that game and the way they used him.
Yeah, man. I like Manny going to San Francisco. I think they're going to try to get him the ball.
I like
more.
that too.
I traded for him in a dynasty league this week.
No, I like that move.
Yeah,
I really do.
Third round rookie pick for Sanders.
I was live on the air with Andrew Siciliano when it broke, and we basically did an instant analysis, and I was like, that's pretty good.
Yeah, Shanahan's going to get him. He's going to find some ways to get him.
They're going to get him going.
All right, last one. This is from Tweet Pete. How much do you trust Derek Carr this week?
I trust him a lot.
I do too. Oh my God!
I would love him as a streamer this week. Absolutely.
I love Derek Carr this week too.
I
This
do.
is an amazing. I love that game actually. Lions Raiders. Like play everyone in that game.
I mean, 2 of the next 3 weeks, he's got the Lions, and then he's got the Bengals in a couple of weeks too. So he's got a couple of nice spots here.
Yep.
I know people don't want to do it, but John Gruden deserves a lot of credit, man.
He's coached well.
He has coached extremely well. I'm happy to say I've been so wrong about the Raiders all year long. I mean, their offensive line has been good. Josh Jacobs looks like a freaking star.
Yeah.
And Derek Carr's having his best season ever by far. I mean, he's got a career high in completion rate. He's averaging well over 7.5 yards per attempt. He's been very good.
Yeah. No,
he hasn't been great in fantasy, but he's
been
starting to turn things around, it looks like.
Right, for fantasy, he's not been good, but real life, he's been extremely efficient. He does not turn the ball over at all either.
Yeah, no, I mean, so like I said, the next 2 of the next 3 weeks, Derek Carr should be on your streaming radar. Absolutely should be. So, hey, so there you go. Hopefully we helped. You can always tweet us individually. You can tweet at the NFL Fantasy handle, though you might be waiting a little bit longer. You're better off trying to hit us up individually on Twitter.com. So there you go. That's it. We are done. We appreciate you downloading and listening. You know the drill. Tell 2 friends to tell 2 friends. Rate, review, and remember, if you want to know how quickly you can get ready, try oversleeping. See you on Friday.